This budget hearing conducted by the Committee on Appropriation and Adjudication will now reconvene with the Guam Fire Department. I want to thank the Chief and his staff for being here this afternoon to present their testimony. As we continue the budget process for fiscal year 2019, we face overwhelming challenges due to the Trump Tax Act impact on the government of Guam's revenue stream. Given such austere times, we found prudent that the Committee on Appropriations have a different tone and approach to the budget hearings. The continued implication that past patterns of appropriation levels will no longer be taken as a given. Prior to this hearing, I sent a letter to the agency present today asking that they provide testimony. In prior fiscal years, the committee had taken an incremental budget approach and had requested the agency to justify any additional funding above the existing funding levels. For this fiscal year, we are engaging in a zero-based budgeting approach, which does not start from the prior year's funding levels to justify next year's fiscal year funding level. Rather, we take a deeper look into each agency's budget, given the likelihood of decreased revenues from which to fund government services for our people. We must take a closer look at each and every agency of the government and not be bound by what we have provided in the past. Some may have Googled zero-based budgeting and found that there are no true consensus on how zero-based budgeting is operationalized. I want to clarify to everyone that the zero-based budgeting approach the committee intends on taking is more a shift in mindset, and as we continue this budget process, the public would be aware that of what we are provided in the past is not what the committee will be solely basing decisions in the future. The committee is doing everything it can to show the people of Guam that what we are committing to a ground-up approach because of the current fiscal condition and environment calls for it. With that, I invite the Chief to present his testimony.
Thank you, Speaker Cruz, Buenas and Hafide, Vice Speaker Talai, and members of the Committee on Appropriations and Adjudication. May I first start off by introducing my management team. To my left, your right, is Assistant Fire Chief Joey Manabusin, who's a Bureau Chief for our Fire Prevention Bureau. Assistant Chief Mike Unkankos, Bureau Chief for Administrative Services. Assistant Chief Darren Barriers, our Bureau Chief for EMS and Rescue Operations, as well as our Training Bureau. And then Assistant Chief Alex Castro, who's my Bureau Chief for Fire Suppression Operations. While I'll be doing majority of the testimony this afternoon, should I need more detailed information, or should you need more detailed information that these gentlemen can provide, please allow them to do so. Thank you for this opportunity to present the Guam Fire Department's fiscal year 2019 proposed budget, and thank you for your continuous support of the Guam Fire Department and its members. Before detailing the Guam Fire Department's fiscal year 2019 request, I'd like to lay the groundwork of my testimony through an overview of our direction, challenges, highlights to date that should bring an understanding of the services that the Guam Fire Department provides to our island. Our guidance remains to meet our mission mandates, ensure that our staff is led, trained, equipped, and paid, increase efficiency and capabilities while decreasing expenditures, and finally to seek revenue enhancement through the cost and recovery and grants. The mission of the Guam Fire Department is to mitigate threats of life, property, and the environment through education, prevention, and effective response to fire, medical, and environmental emergencies. The Guam Fire Department is mandated to provide the overall fire protection, fire prevention, fire suppression, and extinguishment, and the protection of life and property connected therewith, requiring a comprehensive administration of an emergency medical services program and including a wildland firefighting capability for the territory of Guam. The GFD provides for and administers an extensive program of fire prevention inspections, public fire safety education and training, international fire code enforcement, fire investigations, reviews of plans for new and existing building construction, operates and manages the enhanced emergency 911 communication system, and a wide land and open water search and rescue program. In addition, with recent Homeland Security and War on Terrorism initiatives, the Guam Fire Department provides for a comprehensive hazardous material response team, an advanced life support program, and a rapid intervention team. We accomplish this mission by promoting safety and maintaining a well-equipped, highly trained and motivated force of professional firefighters, EMTs, EMDs, and rescue personnel, and promoting fire prevention and other public safety education programs. The Guam Fire Department's goals and objectives are as follows: to maintain timely and effective and quality medical responses to all types of assistance requested by the island community, and such will be accomplished by maintaining the mandate requiring all firefighters to be emergency medical technicians. To continue implementing training so that all firefighters acquire nationally registered emergency medical technician and fire service or pro board certification as first responders to any type of emergencies. To continue implementing the training to have the firefighters who are EMT intermediate certified maintain their certifications with the goal to have them elevate their training to EMT paramedic once the program is implemented. To continue to pursue fiscal avenues to build a GFD headquarters, GFD training facility, and an enhanced E911 center. To maintain emergency medical dispatch certification of our E911 personnel, and to ensure compliance with post requirements by implementing a firefighter physical ability test in our efforts to continue enforcing a physical fitness and wellness program to all firefighters to ensure readiness to respond and to reduce injury. To implement a self-inspection program for businesses in the community to meet the demands of the fire code inspections, continue our smoke detector, public safety education, and life safety programs, and implement a confidence testing program for fire protection systems. To conduct a multi-agency response exercise to assess capability to respond to multiple events, and to continue to train and equip the Emergency Hazardous Material Response Team to work closely together with the Environmental Protection Agency and Homeland Security to prepare against any type of hazardous situation which may become a threat to this island and its community. To purchase more response vehicles and equipment, and to build an additional 2 fire stations in order to expand the department's presence in the community and improve response time. To upgrade the existing antiquated E911 system to provide more efficient operations and effective call and dispatching services to the community. The system will also include a management information system that will monitor all types of suppression, EMS rescue, fire prevention, and investigation responses, and will provide valuable statistics in regards to all responses as well as all E911 calls. To acquire a maintenance facility for the GFD fleet maintenance and repair section. To review the present ambulance billing program and the GFD fee schedule to be in line with current rates in order to better recover costs. Finally, to increase the community outreach programs such as child car seat inspections, station tours, public education events, and etc., in order to strengthen community relations. These goals and objectives are met with perennial challenges that include an attrition rate of 17 firefighters a year, military training and deployments, and medical profiles. These absences negatively affect our ability to meet NFPA and OSHA standards, specifically the 2-in, 2-out rule. A vast majority of our attrition is due to retirements, vacating needed supervisory positions for the various units of the Guam Fire Department. Finally, we are challenged with curtailing overtime expenditures while still providing the necessary services to save lives and protect property to the level of service the community has come to expect. Amongst those challenges, we pride ourselves in the accomplishments we were still able to achieve through the dedication and oftentimes selfless service of our members. We continue to equip our responders with the latest in hazmat response equipment, extrication tools, and self-contained breathing apparatuses. We completed 54 promotions, 25 of which were supervisory. We were able to bring on board 45 fire recruits that will make some headway in the shortage of personnel and the reduction of overtime expenditures. What I am most proud of is the community partnerships and volunteerism of GFD members that has resulted in the renovation, repairs, and painting of various fire stations around the island. This aside from the numerous charity drives, feeding of the less fortunate, and painting of bus stops. In the near future, we look towards the acquisition of a next-generation E911 system, a project currently under review by the Attorney General. The promise of a new Tumuning and Sinohanya fire station and the upgrade for the Agat Rescue Base is in short sight. The GFD continues to work with Gita and his consultant to build an east side boat ramp at Talofofo Bay. Finally, we look to the establishment of the Fire Ground Workplace Evaluation as the measure for post-physical fitness requirements. Along with our future projects, we are working closely with the Office of Senator Nelson to update our fees and fine schedule for our fire prevention, EMS, and fire suppression services, primarily to provide for enforcement and to recover operational costs that may result in a decrease in reliance on the general fund. The Guam Fire Department is a career organization that consists of the following: the Office of the Fire Chief, Administrative and Support Services Bureau, the EMS Rescue Operations Bureau, Fire Suppression Bureau, Training Bureau, the Fire Prevention Bureau, and our E911 Communications Bureau. In this testimony, I will go into the functions and objectives of each as I explain the details of this budget request. However, up front, the following is an executive summary of the Guam Fire Department's FY 2019 budget request as proposed in Option 1. Note that Option 2 is a difference of $5.3 million less, which will result in a severe degradation of services and capabilities, such as the lack of funding for 16 recently hired fire recruits. If needed, a side-by-side comparison can be provided to your offices. The Guam Fire Department is requesting the total amount of $35,761,494 for fiscal year 2019. The amount reflects a decrease of $1,426,454, or negative 3.8% from its FY 2018 appropriations from all funding sources. The table you see details the amount being requested from each funding source and reflects the amount of increase or decrease when compared to the FY 2018 authorized level. A significant note is the complete removal of the Tourist Attraction Fund as a funding source. In the General Fund for Personal Services, GFD's FY 2019 proposed budget from the General Fund remains the same as the authorized funding level for FY 2018. As reflected on the budget digest and proposed staffing pattern, personnel services, which includes regular salaries, overtime, and benefits, are decreased by $1,155,249. This is attributed to the personnel retirements and or resignations during FY 2017 and the current fiscal year, despite the recent recruitment of 45 fire recruits. Although the decrease in overtime shown in the budget digest when comparing FY 2018 authorized and FY 2019 proposed reflects the amount of $54,967, the decrease is much more when compared with the total projected expenditures for this current fiscal year. The projected overtime expenditures for FY 2018 is estimated to be $5.7 million, which will reflect a decrease of approximately $2 million or 52% when compared to our request for FY 2019. It is anticipated that the recently hired fire recruits will be graduating from the Fire Academy by the end of the fiscal year and will be available to augment the current critical personnel shortages, thus reducing overtime expenditures for FY 2019. In our operations, the decrease in personal services requirements will be used to fund all of the Guam Fire Department's annual requirements for travel, contractual services, office space rental, drug testing, and miscellaneous object classes, as well as utilities. As shown on the summary budget digest, there was no funding for these object classes from the general fund for fiscal year 2018, as they were funded by appropriations made from the Tourist Attraction Fund. In our special funds, beginning with the E911 surcharge, GFD's proposed budget from this funding source includes funding to adequately address personal services as well as operations and utility requirements to effectively and efficiently operate the 911 center. Inclusive of our budget request is to fund the estimated annual recurring costs reflected in contractual object class on our soon-to-be completed acquisition of a new state-of-the-art 911 system to replace the antiquated and unreliable current system being utilized. In our Flame Fund, fundings being requested from this funding source will address the Guam Fire Department's annual requirements for supplies, equipment, and capital outlay categories. Due to the recommended funding levels of GFD's FY 2019 needs and supplies are being requested from this specific funding source, it is imperative that funding be provided for GFD to address requirements for medical, firefighting, and rescue supplies, as well as to cover costs for fuel for our fleet of emergency vehicles and other critically needed supplies to sustain operations. GFD is in dire need to procure medical, firefighting, and rescue equipment that are either damaged due to wear and tear or have exceeded its recommended lifespan. Furthermore, adequate funding for capital outlay will allow GFD to continue its yearly procurement of ambulances to replace those that are defective and have exceeded its required lifespan. Lastly, GFD will be able to procure rescue jet skis, a critically needed tanker truck, and life-saving jaws of life extrication equipment. The Office of the Fire Chief provides the overall direction and guidance towards the administration and operations of the program and services relative to the prevention and suppression of fire, protection of life and property from related hazards, comprehensive delivery of emergency medical services, the enforcement of international fire code, plans reviewed through inspections, public fire safety education, arson investigation, and training, the preventive maintenance and repair of GFD's emergency fleet, land and open water search and rescue activities, and E911 system to provide more efficient operations and effective call and dispatching services to the community. The major objectives of the Office of the Fire Chief is to enhance the overall efficiency, effectiveness in GFD's service delivery, to reduce fire-related injuries and avert line-of-duty deaths and fire-related fatalities by promoting public awareness, fire safety, fire prevention, and proficiency through training, to instill and enhance professionalism to the highest standards and in the discharge of duties by all rank and fire personnel, and to foster articulate communications and relationship with the community we serve, particularly pertaining to fire, traffic accidents, injuries, and other EMS and rescue incidences. A total of $444,850 is being requested for the Office of Fire Chief for FY 2019, which is $136,155 or 44% more than what was authorized for FY 2018. The increase is attributed to filling of the Deputy Fire Chief position and Private Secretary position. The amount being requested will fund the salaries and benefits of these positions, as well as the Fire Chief and Secretary too, which should be noted that the Fire Chief's position is currently vacant and unfilled as a cost-saving measure to meet the department's budget reduction level for FY 2018. However, the position is fully budgeted in anticipation that it will be filled by the incoming administration. For Administrative and Support Services Bureau, this bureau is responsible for supporting the Chief's Office and all other bureaus through administrative support and logistics services department-wide. Its support activities comprise of all service-related functions such as fiscal, records management, human resources, payroll services, federal programs and planning, research and development, and supply management. The Bureau is responsible for preparing the annual budget in coordination with the other bureaus and is responsible for the administration and management of the department's approved annual budget. Its major objectives are to provide an adequate funding level to operate all the bureaus, to pursue all avenues to increase revenues for fees and services, to source, apply, and administer local and federal grants, and to ensure the personnel within the emergency operations are provided with the required and most adequate supplies and materials and equipment to fulfill the mission of providing services to the community. The amount of $1,899,352 is being requested for the Administrative and Support Services Bureau for FY 2019, which reflects an increase of $1,148,528, or 152% from the authorized level of FY 2018. On personnel services, the amount of $444,402, or 39.2% of the Bureau's total budget request, is to fund salaries and benefits for 7 classified full-time employees consisting of an ASO, personnel officer, payroll clerk 1, administrative aide, automotive mechanic, and 2 heavy equipment mechanic 2s. The remaining amount of $299,901 is being requested to fill 6 vacant positions, which consist of a heavy equipment mechanic 2, a payroll clerk 3, administrative assistant, maintenance specialist, a property control officer, and a program coordinator 4. These positions have been vacant for over 10 years and are critically needed to fulfill the mission and the major objectives of this Bureau as well as the departments. It is important to note that these vacant positions are currently being underfilled collaterally by uniformed personnel. Filling of these positions will allow GFD to reassign these uniformed personnel as full-time responders. Lastly, these positions were funded for the current fiscal year. However, recruitment had to be postponed due to the FY 2019 appropriations reduction as a result of the Governor's fiscal realignment plan. For operations, GFD is requesting the amount of $680,898, or 35.8% of the Bureau's budget total requests, to cover GFD's operations costs for FY 2019. As previously mentioned, there was no funding for these object classes from the general fund for fiscal year 2018, as they were funded by the appropriations made from the Tourist Attraction Fund. The details in the request for funding for operations are as follows. For travel, $23,144. Funding for travel will allow GFD to send personnel off-island to attend the following conferences: Fire Rescue International Conference Seminar in Dallas, Texas. This conference brings together fire and emergency service leaders from across the United States and around the globe to learn and collaborate together. Training covers all areas of the emergency service: managing change, ethical leadership, EMS issues, career development, and more. The Association of Public Safety Communication Officials, APCO, Conference Seminar in Las Vegas, Nevada. The conference is focused on frontline telecommunications, leadership development, communication center management, cutting-edge technology, and more. Attending this conference will tremendously assist GFD in acquiring information and training as it prepares GFD for the soon-to-be completed procurement of its new generation 911 system, a system that will provide the public better access to 911 whenever for emergency assistance occurs. EMS Today Conference Seminar in Salt Lake City, Utah. This conference focuses on the future of EMS and new clinical practices. Information gathered and training received from this conference will increase the level of care provided by GFD's EMTs first responders to citizens in need of emergency medical care and transport. Finally, our Fire Rescue Med Conference Seminar in Henderson, Nevada. As mass casualty events continue to arise, it is essential for fire service EMS leaders to stay abreast of new resources, practices, and information that will prepare the Guam Fire Department. This conference offers up-to-date practices and information relative to the rescue and EMS operations. All personnel attending these conferences, seminars are required to provide after-action reports, and through coordination with the Training Bureau, conduct training, lectures, and demonstrations on training and information obtained to all concerned GFD personnel. For contractual service, $332,886 is requested. Funding for contractual service is being requested for the purpose indicated below. Medical oxygen bottle refilling service at $180,686 to cover costs for refilling of medical oxygen bottles for all ambulances, engine companies, advanced life support units, and rescue units. For the repair and maintenance of GFD's fleet, $60,000 to cover costs for maintenance, diagnosis, and repairs of all GFD vehicles, emergency and non-emergency units, and sea crafts that require specialized mechanical skills and/or are beyond the capabilities of GFD's mechanics. Tower and record services, $4,000 to cover costs for towing record services for all GFD vehicles requiring such service. Our LP gas tank refills, $15,000 to cover costs for refills of LP gas tanks at all fire and rescue stations. These tanks are for gas stoves being used for meal preparation at the stations. $1,200 to cover costs for watercraft harbor slip rental from the Port Authority of Guam for GFD rescue boats at the Agate and Hagåtña Marina. $5,000 to cover costs for the repairs and maintenance of appliances located at all fire and rescue stations. These appliances consist of washers, dryers, air conditioners, and gas stoves. And $42,000 for the purpose of trash disposal for all fire and rescue stations. Office space rentals at $177,840. This amount is being requested for office space lease currently at the DNA building in Hagåtña. The office space is for all GFD bureaus and its employees, including its training center, and is also being utilized as a backup 911 call center. GFD has conducted a thorough research into the possibility of relocating or branching out its headquarters administrative offices to various fire stations. However, it has been determined that it is not feasible at all. This is due to the following: decentralization of bureaus, space availability is inadequate, a disruption in services, overcrowding of personnel, and it creates an inconvenience and uncomfortable working environment for first responders assigned to the fire stations and administrative staff. It is significant to note that between 1993 and 1994, headquarters and administrative staff were relocated to various fire stations for cost containment measures. However, within 6 months, GFD had to lease office space due to the reasons stated above. Currently, GFD is working with the Guam Economic Development Authority and the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal for the construction of a new Tumuning Fire Station as well as the Sinahanya Fire Station. It is GFD's plan that once construction of the new station at Tumuning occurs, that will include accommodations and space for our headquarters, there will no longer be a need to lease office space. For drug testing, we're requesting $12,000 needed for the department to continue conducting random drug tests for its personnel. $135,028 is requested to cover costs for uniform allowances for all uniformed fire personnel, bid advertisements for procurement exceeding $15,000, and for subscription services to the National Fire Protection Association and the International Association of Fire Chiefs. $474,351 is requested to address GFD's power at $356,851, our water, $97,500, and telephone at $20,000 for FY 2019 for all of its fire and rescue stations. Our EMS Rescue Operations Bureau. This bureau is responsible for the administration of the emergency medical services and rescue operation. It assists in the preparation of the GFD annual budget, development of division goals and objectives, conduct periodic quality assurance to ensure compliance of department and federal rules and regulations, orders and directives, the development of program plans to facilitate the achievement of bureau goal and objectives, and conducting training programs to enhance personnel skills, proficiencies, and capabilities of emergency rescue personnel to effectuate quality delivery of services. The major objectives of the Bureau are to provide for rapid deployment of EMS and rescue personnel to all emergencies and alarms, ensuring standard response times is met, to maintain departmental professional integrity by performing the highest degree of professionalism, establishment of achievable performance system for monitoring and evaluating personnel effectiveness, and additional advanced life support personnel to continue to maintain consistent high level of patient care. The amount of $8,938,672 is being requested for the EMS rescue operations for FY 2019, which reflects a decrease of $856,259 or 8.74% from the authorized level of FY 2018. The requested amount will fund for regular salaries, overtime, and benefits for 65 uniformed fire positions. The decrease in funding requests for FY 2019 is attributed to retirements, resignation, and the reduction in overtime as a result of the recruitment of 45 fire recruits. The Fire Suppression Bureau is responsible for administering programs and services relative to the suppression and extinguishment of all fire incidents on Guam, to contain and mitigate all hazardous material incidences, assisting in the preparation of the departmental budget, its goals and objectives, conducts review of all command and section activities to ensure compliance in consonance with the department directives and orders, conducts strategic planning for conformity to established goals and objectives, coordinates with the Training Bureau on training and development and enhancing firefighting capabilities, strategies, and jurisdictional and mutual aid covenants. The major objectives of the Bureau are to ensure adequate firefighting and response capabilities resulting in meeting response time, provide efficient, effective, and professional firefighting and EMS services, to protect life and property, to abate or reduce destruction of property to a minimum and prevent unnecessary loss of life, and instill professionalism and integrity in the performance of duty. The Fire Prevention Bureau is responsible for the enforcement of fire laws and regulations, the inspection and abatement of existing and potential fire hazards, the development and evaluation and administration of fire prevention and fire safety programs, the review of building plans for compliance with the International Fire Code requirements, the investigation of fires to determine the origin and cause and recommend corrective measures, the processing of all complaints pertaining to fires, life safety, and hazardous conditions, the review of existing ordinance, rules and regulations, laws, and other related publications, and recommend changes when needed. The major objectives of the Fire Prevention Bureau are to create and maintain a fire-safe environment by preventing and/or eliminating the physical, occupational, and environmental hazards that contribute to the occurrence and spread of fire, to promote fire safety awareness throughout the island of Guam, and to provide timely investigations on all referrals from engine companies and the general public relative to fires and life safety hazards. The Training Bureau is responsible for initial training and continuing skills development of all firefighters and officers. It coordinates efforts with other units within the department and identifying employee strengths and weaknesses, implements improved methods of instruction and providing quality training programs that reflects needs and changes, provides necessary research, evaluation, and recommendation for new products and procedures necessary to maintain a state-of-the-art emergency response organization. The major objectives of the Training Bureau are to maintain an efficient training program by utilizing, where feasible, training opportunities provided by bona fide training organizations and institutions, to increase firefighters' effectiveness in firefighting, EMS, fire prevention, hazardous materials, and weapons of mass destruction through continuous training, to establish partnerships with institutions and organizations that offer relevant training to increase and enhance all skill levels of firefighters, and identifying and administering training to the community in fire safety, basic first aid, and CPR, and all other training requested by the community. The amount of $20,602,129 is requested for the Fire Suppression, Prevention, and Training Bureaus for FY 2019, which reflects a decrease of $428,424 or 2.04% from the authorized level of FY 2018. The requested amount will fund regular salaries, overtime, and benefits for 181 uniformed fire positions, including the recently hired 45 fire recruits. The decrease in funding requests for FY 2019 is attributed to retirements, resignations, and vacant positions authorized to be filled in the current fiscal year, canceled in its entirety, and not being funded for FY 2019. With our special funds, our E911 Communications Bureau is responsible for operations, maintenance, and administration of the Enhanced Emergency 911 Telephone Communications System, which provides the island community with direct access to public safety and emergency response agencies with the intent of reducing response time to situations requiring fire, medical, rescue, law enforcement, and other emergency services. It is further responsible for alerting and dispatching department personnel and equipment to citizens in need of emergency services. The major objectives of the Bureau are to enhance the effectiveness and efficiency in providing the community rapid access to emergency public safety services, to provide accurate call taking and pre-arrival instructions to callers in need of emergency assistance, to ensure efficiency and accurateness in dispatching response units to achieve ideal response time for emergencies, and to ensure that responders' support from other agencies or private sector are notified during time of need. The amount of $2,179,124 is being requested for the E911 Communications Bureau for FY 2019, which reflects a slight increase of $12,065 or 6.6% from the authorized level of FY 2018. On personnel services, the amount of $1,323,860 is being requested to fund salaries, overtime, and benefits for 24 classified full-time employees consisting of 3 emergency medical dispatch supervisors and 19 emergency medical dispatchers, and 1 administrative assistant and 1 secretary, 1 typist position. Additionally, the amount of $219,362 is requested to fill 4 critically needed vacant positions, which consist of an E911 administrator and 3 emergency medical dispatchers. For its operations, GFD is requesting the amount of $472,812, or 22% of the Bureau's budget total request to cover its operation costs for FY 2019. The details in the request for funding for operations are as follows. $427,812, the amount of $400,000 is requested to cover the estimated annual recurring costs on our soon-to-be completed acquisition of a new state-of-the-art 911 system. The remaining $27,812 will address costs for copier lease, communications, equipment maintenance, and repair, bottled water services, and computer repair and services. Supplies and materials, $17,000. This amount requested will allow the Bureau to purchase office supplies at $2,000, computer software and supplies at $5,000, and radio communication supplies at $10,000. Equipment of $10,000. Funding is requested for the purpose of procuring 4 computer systems to replace those that are defective and beyond repair. Miscellaneous requests of $6,000 for the purpose of procuring uniforms for personnel assigned to E911 Communication Bureau, and brochures, pamphlets, decals at $1,000 in support of the 911's public awareness campaign. For utilities, $163,090. This amount is requested to address the E911 Center's power at $85,090, its water at $3,000, and telephone at $75,000 needs for FY 2019. The Fire, Life, and Medical Emergency Fund was created by Public Law 22-52 to establish a capital outlay revolving fund within the Guam Fire Department to purchase essential emergency rescue firefighting vehicles and emergency life support equipment. Revenues are generated through fire prevention fees and fines, emergency and non-emergency ambulance transports, and for other services authorized by Public Law 29-02. For fiscal year 2019, the Guam Fire Department requests appropriations in the amount of $1,697,367 to address its needs and operations, which include contractual services, supplies and equipment, and capital outlay. GFD's FY 2019 needs and supplies are being requested from the specific funding source. It is imperative that funding be provided for GFD to address requirements for medical, firefighting, and rescue supplies, as well as to cover costs for fuel for our fleet of emergency vehicles and other critically needed supplies to sustain operations. GFD is in dire need to procure medical, firefighting, and rescue equipment that are either damaged due to wear and tear or have exceeded its recommended lifespan. Furthermore, adequate funding for capital outlay will allow GFD to continue its yearly procurement of ambulances to replace those that are defective and have exceeded its required lifespan. Lastly, GFD will be able to procure rescue jet skis, a critically needed tanker truck, and life-saving Jaws of Life extrication equipment. The following table details GFT's need from this funding, and I'll just point out a few. Specifically, the land vehicle and seacraft fuel requests at $250,000 for the FY 2019. In closing, we are confident that GFD's proposed FY 2019 budget will provide sufficient funding to sustain our current progress in maintaining and/or improving our level of public service. The Guam Fire Department is committed to meet our island's expectations to provide the best service we can, and I am personally committed to work with each one of you to ensure the needs of our island are addressed within the realm of the fire service and public safety. Thank you again for allowing me this opportunity, and I look forward to your questions and recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you for a very thorough presentation of your budget request. I think you and GFD GPD should transfer your MIS people to OTEC. Your PowerPoint presentation went better. You never had to stop and say next. Let me also thank you and all the firemen and EMT for all the good work that they've done. But now I have to put on my hat as the Budget and Appropriations Chair. I'm sure you watched this morning's hearing with GPD and how I ended it. You have a very zealous oversight chair who has fought tirelessly for GFD. Last year we fought over the budget. She didn't vote for the budget because of the fact that she believed that I didn't fund you adequately. But I'll first start from, we'll go backwards on your testimony. the last two sections on special funds. I should hope that you would have been ready to respond to my first question as it relates to those, because it was in the news recently. How much of the E911 funds were permanently transferred out of the department in the last fiscal year?
$839,583.
$839,000. How much are you requesting this year for E911?
The total request out of E911 is for $2,179,124.
How much for the contractual system that you say you're going to have for the new enhanced?
So we've projected 400,000 for the next gen enhanced next generation 911 system procurement, and that's a $400,000 annual payment.
And what was that 800,000 transferred out for?
So part of that was lapse fund. Part of that 400,000 that we had projected but did not execute, which was the procurement of the next gen 911 system for the past year, and then the other half is what I assume to be unappropriated funds that was not given to us.
And what was the E911 fund created for?
Specifically for the administration and operations of the E911 Center.
Not only was that created by local statute, but that was also created by federal statute, wasn't it?
Yes.
And wasn't the federal statute very clear about the use of these funds that you've been authorized to collect?
Yes.
Does the transfer of that $839,583 comply with federal statute?
No, it doesn't. The short answer is no. However, again, this is
Thank you.
Unappropriated funds, so it was transferred by DOA.
For the previous fiscal year, how much did you authorize to be transferred out of the E911 fund?
$488,779.
How much?
$488,779.
Is that all for the previous fiscal year?
For FY 2016?
17? Well, yeah, no, 17.
For 2017, it was $839,583.
On February the 12th, 2016, do you recall signing a memo to the Department of Administration permanently acknowledging the transfer of $712,500.62?
Right, that was for FY 2015, $712,501. And yes, I do recall signing that letter acknowledging the permanent transfer that was done by Department of Administration.
And in March of 2015, do you recall how much you acknowledged having been transferred out of the E911?
Would that be the FY 2014
Correct.
transfer out of $1,839,852?
I suppose I could add it up, but maybe you've already added it up of how much you've transferred out of the E911, which was supposed to be for the new gen. It's 1.839,854 plus 712,500 plus 839,000. That's close to 4 million, and you're still asking for 400,000 for a contract for this coming year, but under your watch, over your signature, you acknowledge having transferred out almost $4 million from the E911 fund.
Right. And so, as you just stated, I acknowledged it, that it was transferred out, not by me, but by Department of Administration. And so, just as Police Chief J.I. Cruz stated, this was instructed to us. They convinced us this was a part of their accounting principles. And I believe it was the public auditor who came out and basically stated it's a situation where the funds needed to be used, or else a larger negative impact could have happened. But as far as did I agree with it? No, I did not agree with it. I only acknowledged it, that it did happen.
I understand that. How much was the new generation E911 system supposed to cost you?
Based on our last request for interest, roughly about $2.5 million just for the equipment purchase. And then roughly about $400,000 or a little less for the annual maintenance contract.
And so in this year's budget, you're asking for the whole $400,000 for the contractual.
Yes.
Have you purchased the $2.5 million worth of equipment yet?
No, we have not. Again, the procurement is under review with the Attorney General.
When we had the Department of Administration here, they acknowledged that they were transferring money from special funds. And they said that it was being utilized because, that they were transferring it because they could see in their books that GFD had this budget, this account that showed $800,000 that wasn't being used or hadn't been encumbered. And so they transferred it out.
Exactly.
And this has happened, at least in our discussion, our recollection today, every fiscal year. Have you signed an acknowledgement for how much was for this year yet?
No, however, there was, I believe, a change in the approach just before Director Balletto resigned from DOA, where they, for lack of a better term, took the responsibility of stating that they transferred it prior to it coming to the E911 fund. And so we just, again, signed an acknowledgement of that.
Besides the transfers out of the E911 fund, and you go off in detail in your testimony about how important all of this fire suppression information, this, where is that? In the flame fund, how you need all this tanker trucks, jet skis, life-saving jaws of extrication, all this equipment that is absolutely critical to the operation of your department. And I unfortunately have seen how well the jaws of life has been able to extricate people. I wish I hadn't seen it, but I did. And so I recognize how important that is for the work that you do and the life-saving that is imperative. How much has been transferred from the flame fund?
Senator, I'm not tracking any funds that were transferred out of the flame fund.
Would it surprise you that there are records of $331,345.
I stand corrected. I was just informed. $345.
Just in the last fiscal year, right? That was for FY17?
Yes.
And does Captain have the accumulated amount for how much was transferred between FY14 and 17 out of the Flame Fund?
We don't have that at this time.
Would it surprise you that between those, that the total amount is 1.649, 1,649,000?
Yes, I would.
That's how much we show in our records that has been transferred out. I can't even imagine how many jaws of life that would, or how many fire trucks that you guys have been wanting, or ambulances.
I agree.
Are there any other special funds that you have in the department where money has been transferred out?
Those are the only two special funds that we have.
Is there a special fund called the GFD Capital Revolving Fund?
That is the Flame Fund.
That is the Flame Fund. I just wanted to make that point, that a lot of the requests that you're making in this upcoming year's budget, you've had sufficient funds in previous years that could have been purchased during those fiscal years. And not that I'm trying to chide my poor colleague who was a freshman last year and bought hook, line, and sinker your plea that I was cheating you and underfunding you, and I kept trying to insist to her that we were overfunding you, and she just was insistent, no way, I'm devoted to protecting them, and I'm going to fight you on not giving them enough money. I do this just to point out that that this legislature has continuously, every year, recognized, as I've told you at many hearings, I know that you're the ones that's going to come and pull me out of my apartment or my house. Or pull me or a family member out of a car. So that's why we as a legislature almost bend over backwards in trying to provide for you. And she fought tooth and nail for you guys, only to find out that you guys had been transferring out almost $6 million in the last couple of years. $6 million that could have been used to replace everything, all the fire trucks that you guys wanted. I mean, even more than you would have needed.
If I may, Mr. Speaker, we spend to the level of the appropriations given to us by the Guam Legislature. And so if there was any lapse amounts of money, the only reason why I can only think of two reasons why we didn't spend it. Number one, either it wasn't appropriated for us, or number two, we probably had some type of procurement issue or hiccup, which has happened in the past. Other than that, we're very...
For those special funds...
Correct. So the E911 fund, I can only say that because we haven't been able to get over this hurdle of getting out for the RFP, we haven't been able to utilize those funds. For the Flame Fund, when it comes to the equipment, we definitely are very judicious and aggressive in purchasing or procuring needed equipment. to the level of the funding that's appropriated to us. Other than that, I can only think of procurement issues or hiccups that may have prevented us from purchasing equipment towards the end of the FY, which would have created that lapse or availability of funds.
But I'm just saying, we have provided and tried to provide.
And I agree with you, as I stated in my testimony, Senator, Mr. Speaker. The legislature has been very supportive of the Guam Fire Department and its members. The fire department of today is a far cry from what it was 7-8 years ago.
You make mention of the vacant positions. And in that one area, fire suppression mostly, where you talk about moving people or filling those vacancies so that these individuals could, I think it's on page 6 of your testimony, in administrative services and support. You want to hire all of these civilian positions.
Yes.
That you say are currently being filled by
uniformed personnel.
Uniformed personnel. Which then brings me to my next question. When uniformed personnel are underfilling or overfilling these positions, civilian positions, are they getting hazardous pay?
Not during the time that they're executing those job duties and responsibilities, but they do. When they do get assigned to response units, they are, that pretty much satisfies our firefighter requirement. Just to note, the Guam Fire Department and its firefighters do not get hazardous pay, which is another issue I'd like to address soon.
I thought, if memory serves me right, and I think Senator Rory had some legislation passed. All sworn officers of the Guam Fire Department, on the hazardous pay section. The appointing authorities of the Customs and Quarantine, the AB Wampat Airport Authority, the Department of Agriculture, Parks, Guam Fire Department, and the Department of Administration shall identify and direct exposure personnel, and upon exposure shall be entitled to a 10% hazardous pay differential. That's the authority under which you grant hazardous pay, correct?
Right. So we've, in the past, have submitted a list of positions that I deemed performing hazardous duty when they do respond. However, it was determined by Department of Administration that the job of a firefighter is inherently hazardous and is covered within the pay that firefighters receive. So that has been the uphill battle for me, yes.
Yeah, that's the same thing that the marshals have. The marshals have a provision that says that it's only when they're under, provided that hazardous pay shall not include the customary, ordinary, or routine duties of marshals and probation officers.
Exactly, and
yes.
So
yours is different. I understand that yours is different from GPD, where GPD gets hazardous pay because they have additional. I mean, they're supposedly under condition, always under hazard.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I believe that definition is very subjective, and the job of a firefighter is to enter into hazardous conditions all the time. However, and so that's why Department of Administration has determined that it's inherently within our job description.
That you get the 10% regardless of...
That we do not get the 10%.
You don't get the 10%. So that's why my question was prefaced with, when they're in doing civilian duties of accounts, or I would also think even in the fire suppression, going out and checking things, they do or they don't get hazardous pay.
They do not.
For budget purposes, do you include hazardous pay in the spreadsheets for everybody?
No, we do not.
Because, again, I hate to get personal about it, but in your position, in the spreadsheet, the hazardous, the special pay, how much of that is?
You might be talking about the firefighter pay, or the extra 26 hours above the 80-hour worker. What's significantly different between firefighters and every other public safety agency is that we work a 120 schedule. That is the normal firefighter schedule for the Guam Fire Department firefighter. And so that the pay that you may be referring to is that 26 hours above the 80-hour pay, which the federal service refers to as firefighter pay.
Well, just in your spreadsheet, your base is 92.
Yeah.
And there is a...
Right, so because there's no
26.
actual column within the spreadsheet for firefighter pay, we were instructed not to alter the form and to place it in that column. I believe that might be where the confusion is.
And the amount that you have, I mean, even for yourself, that's the only one that I can see broken out, unfortunately, or fortunately. That doesn't seem to be 10% of your base pay.
No, because 26 hours is not 10% of an 80-hour salary. It's 32%.
So everybody's, for all the other officers, including yourself, you've included this 30% for the additional amount?
Yes,
Is that
because
correct?
that's a standard salary of a firefighter.
How about, because it looks like under yours, there's a 26 in overtime. That's that additional 16, right?
Additional 14 hours.
And then there's 37,000 for special pay.
Correct.
And that's the,
Yeah, night differential, holiday, and the 26 hours.
and that's budgeted, that's in there regardless of whether or not there is night differential. You're anticipating, or will that entire amount be utilized during the fiscal year?
That's the anticipation, give or take, depending on the utilization throughout the year.
So with all the other officers, did we put in a 30% in anticipation of them getting night differential? And
Yes.
and how much of that will actually be utilized during the year?
Well, we currently have 188 believe it's 188 firefighters who pull 24-hour shifts, and they get night differential from the hours of 1800 to 06 in the morning, 12 hours a night. So for those 188, you can be sure that all that 10% of night differential will be utilized. There are other firefighters who are on flexible schedules where it'll, be less, but for the most part, the vast majority, it is funded and anticipated to be utilized.
So utilizing Senator Roy's provision on hazardous pay, you don't ever announce, you don't make any special pay for that one?
No, we don't. And again, that's just based on interpretation. And so that's another issue I'd like to work with my oversight chair with in the future, as soon as we get through these fees and fines schedule that she's working with us on.
And who oversees how much night differential everybody gets?
The respective bureau chiefs to my left and right for their personnel basically validate the time schedules or work performance of each of their uniformed personnel that work under them.
Going back to those civilian employees, you very clearly state in your testimony these have been vacant for the last 10 years.
Yeah. Yes, some probably longer than that, maybe 15 years.
And you've been chief for now 7?
7 years, yes, or 8 years this year.
And now for this upcoming year, you want those filled?
Actually, we've requested it pretty much every year since I've been the chief. Last year was, I believe, the first time it was actually funded, but because of the crisis that we went through earlier, apparently we weren't able to recruit it into the positions.
Okay, I just wanted your oversight here to hear that we did fund it last year.
Yes, you did.
And that you did not fill it.
We tried.
How many vacant positions do you have currently? How many vacant?
For uniformed personnel?
Correct.
For civilian personnel, non-uniform, we have 10 within our headquarters and a total of 4 up at our emergency medical dispatch center. Those 10 that I'm talking about with the headquarters includes our mechanics as well. If we can pull up the very last page of the presentation, it will show the vacancy report. So on the vacancy report for uniformed personnel, we have a total of 83 vacancies. That's, of course, the position of the fire chief, 1 battalion chief, 19 captains, 25 fire service specialists or fire lieutenants, 15 firefighter 2s, and that's it. And of course, our firefighter 1s are at 22.
You've very capably handled the department as a classified deputy over the last several months. Is it imperative that we continue to have a fire chief separate from the deputy, or can the department be handled you've done this very?
It's very imperative, Mr. Speaker, because I am assuming the duties of 2 hats. I've been doing that actually even when I was the fire chief. I did not have a deputy fire chief. And the deputy fire chief responsibilities was pretty much divided amongst the chief officers that have served beside me throughout all these years. So yes, the position of the fire chief is very necessary.
But couldn't they handle all of the the responsibilities without filling one of those two positions, either have the chief and no deputy, or the deputy with no chief, and they continue to operate the way that they've been doing over the last 8 years?
They could, but I would believe it'd be unfair to them, requiring them to continue to work above and beyond the expectations of their job position.
They are just fulfilling their responsibilities as their bureau chief, their bureau head, not assuming any other additional deputy position.
Yeah, we take a very holistic approach, as you've probably seen over time. As every time I appoint an acting fire chief, I pretty much rotate it amongst the four individuals to my left and right. And a lot of that is really to ensure that all of us are on the same page with everything that's happening within the Guam Fire Department, and to give them a true understanding of what the position of the fire chief entails and the demands that it has. And if I may speak for the five of us, it's definitely a position deserving of one body within itself. The fire chief position is very necessary.
This morning I asked Chief Cruz what the mean average wage of the fire.
I do not have that at this time.
Do you know what the average base salary is?
Not at this time, but I'll provide it for you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure you've made comparisons. You have in the past reminded me how much the chief at Anderson is making, and so
I can speak for the position of the fire chief. Yes, the average salary of a fire chief for a department of the size of the Guam Fire Department is upwards between $180,000 to $220,000, which I've seen most recently in my exploration of fire chief positions on the West Coast. But just on Guam, with looking at our federal and military partners, you're looking at again $150,000 to $180,000, and their departments are not even half the size of ours.
And compared to what you've seen on the West Coast, do you have any idea what their firemen are averaging?
Well, if you start with California going up to Washington, California's on the high end, between 80,000 to 100,000. Washington, it drops down to between 60 to 80,000, which is probably representative of the Guam Fire Department.
Probably. I mean, our calculations show you at about 60 with the base pay, and then with special and overtime, it's probably at 73.
Yes, and what's most important to note, Mr. Speaker, is firefighters work 40 hours more a pay period than every single employee in the government of Guam. And again, I'll say that lightly, 40 hours required to work as opposed to overtime. They do not receive overtime until 106 hours have been performed, and then they can get overtime on the 107th hour. And again, that is covered in the 7K exemption in the Fair Labor Standards Act. While on the surface firefighter salaries may appear higher on an average, it's because we work 40 more hours, or required to work 40 more hours than every other worker in the government.
Again, you mentioned that there are 83 vacancies currently?
83 vacancies, yes.
And you have...
And that's on our full-time employment inventory.
And you have currently 45 recruits in training?
That is correct, yes.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean,
thank you,
been trying
Mr. Speaker.
several years to get you to finally pick them up. The 83, how many of them are funded?
None are funded, these current vacancies that we have. The one we're filling is the 45 positions are funded. The only positions that will be funded going into the rest of this FY are those through attrition, whether it be retirements or resignations. Okay.
And there was How many fire captains were there in the department before you assumed the position of chief? Do you remember how many captains the department was being run by?
I do not recall, but it was definitely less than 20 fire captains. Not every fire station had a officer in charge at the rank of fire captain.
And now you have 25 fire captains, is that correct?
Now we have 27 fire captains, which is still not enough. We still have a few stations that are being supervised by a fire service specialist or fire lieutenant, as what we refer to internally. And if I may note, in our Fire Prevention Bureau, the fire captain is the actual first rank of law enforcement authority for the International Fire Code. And so you'll see a large number, or relatively large number of fire captains at the Fire Prevention Bureau.
I'm sure you were either watching or heard about my exchange with the OPA.
If it was in the last 2 weeks, Mr. Speaker, no, I did not.
Okay. Well, I was very critical about the creation of classified positions to move unclassified people into it. And her desire to fill much the same way that you have with your position. And compliance with statute of the time. You are aware that there is a statutory provision that you cannot move into the classified position within 180 days of your leaving the unclassified one.
Yes, I am aware of that, yeah.
And there was no lapse in time with yours, was there?
No, and to be clear, if I can shed some light, Mr. Speaker, I had every intention, I've stated it many times, of returning into the classified service. I became the fire chief only after 15 years of service. And based on our new retirement, I need to retire at the age of 62. And so that said, I'm only 43 now. I had every intention of returning to the classified service. And so there is a specific law specific to the police chief and the fire chief, and forgive me, I don't have the citation right now, that allows us, when we do come from a classified position within our agency to serve as a fire chief, we may return to a position, to the previous position once occupied, or any position that we are deemed qualified for. And so with the deputy fire chief position, it was announced through an open, competitive process, and fortunately I was able to get it. But I would have been perfectly fine returning back to what I was as a fire lieutenant, because even as a fire lieutenant, I was still making more money than I was as a fire chief.
And I complimented you. In fact, I asked you when you first took this position, why? But I thank you for wanting to step up to assist the department.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to be even with everybody. I jumped all over the OPA. And I'm just telling you that I see these things and I just want to point it out, and I'm not happy with it. Yesterday, I jumped all over the director of Public Health and Social Services because of the fact that, again, Public Health and Social Services is something near and dear to my heart. And yesterday, Senator Nelson and Senator Vice Speaker Chalahi were looking at me like I was the original baby killer and starver of old people